Welcome. Welcome to Lost in Our 40s, a podcast by women for women where we discuss everyday topics on how to make our lives better. Welcome in. I'm Shiro. Today is a painting day, so I have my painting gear. You're welcome to do whatever it is you usually do when you listen to podcasts, and I shall paint. Today's topic is evolving. We're talking about the brain, trauma, flashbacks, how all these things are connected with each other. I was reading a book, as I often am. So I'm just through with the book, What Happened to You, by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry. And that, I know I say this about a lot of books, but that's another one that should be like compulsory reading. It just explains so much about what we do and how we do it. And before that, I was reading another one called Complex PTSD. I can't remember what about it, but by Pete Walker, I think. And so there are all these notions that have been tied together, and I want to do some kind of explanation and exploration about the facts that came up in that. So when we start with the brain, super interesting. So again, the base of all this is trauma. So what is explained in What Happened to You, in fact, the book is about the idea that when people have gone through traumatic experiences, they react in different ways. They go through life having different experiences, and those experiences are tied to the traumatic events that happened in their lives. And they wouldn't know it. They wouldn't necessarily know it. It's the same way trauma generally, it affects you, it impacts you in ways that you don't necessarily see, you don't necessarily know. So what they tie out is the connection on how the brain works. So the explanation given is this. You have a situation happening. In fact, I was thinking, just before recording, I was thinking about something like an accident. If you've ever had a near accident or an actual accident. But in my case, it was a near accident that came to mind. I was driving and nothing happened. It was a vehicle that almost hit me, I think. And then I was in the car, I was shaking. I was really, really, really shaking. And right now I was trying to think back to the situation and what I thought about it and how it went along. And at the point when the accident happens, it's like, for me, at the point when it was just about to happen, it's like for me anyway, it was like the system takes over. So in that case, I really don't remember how exactly what it was, but it was, I think I stopped, and a car unexpectedly, no, it's a car that unexpectedly came to hit me. It passed me, I think, from the back, and then I stopped. But the process of stopping and realizing what was happening was outside of my thinking brain. And this is what we want to talk about. So the explanation given by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah is that information reaches your mind. You have your nervous system. So the nerves are the ones which are bringing in the senses, the sensory input, and also just how your body is doing. We need more blood here. There's an infection there, we need to go fight. So there's all this information that is going around, and your brain is the central information system. So this information is at some point being relayed to the brain, and then there's a decision of what needs to happen, and then the brain is sending the instructions to the part that needs to act. So the explanation is this. The way your brain is organized, your most intelligent part is here at the front. So this is the last part that develops, and this is what newer man has evolved to have. So all of this reasoning part that's at the front, and your first parts to develop are, the brain stem, what is down at the bottom. So this is what early man also used to have. So information coming through from your body into your brain, because it's coming through your nervous system, it's coming through your spine. So the first spot it stops is at this lower part, the brainstem, this lower part of your brain. So it goes there before it fills out to the rest of you. So this is very important, because the explanation is this lower part of your brain, that because this is the part that makes you first of all just survive. As you go down, we've said this is the most intelligent part, so it comes up. There's the parts of you that are, there's the parts of your brain that are helping these processes that you're not logically engaged in yourself. How your food is being digested and how your pupils are dilating or not, the things that you yourself have no control over. Yeah, your breathing, you can interrupt it, you can control it to some extent, but it can work without you. It works without you. That's how you sleep. That's how you breathe while you're sleeping. If throughout the day you don't concentrate your effort on saying, now I'm breathing in, now I'm breathing out. So there are those systems. There are those systems within your body that operate independent of you. And so if you're doing algebra and you have this sum that you're trying to understand, that I've just asked myself if sums are algebra. Bear with me. Maths was a long time ago. So if you're doing some math problem and you're trying to solve it, that is the more intelligent part of your brain. So in the situation, if we go back to the accident that I was just describing, what happens there is that different systems come up, the information first comes to your, again, this is information from your body and from your senses. So your eyes is a sense, and even your body, you can get this, you can feel when something is about to go wrong, instinct or just your body feeling. So from that is information that your body has gathered in whatever way it has gathered it. The senses have been told, the nerves have been told. They're sending this information up to the brain. So the brain stem is the one that's responsible for these fight or flight. Fight, flight, freeze. The brain stem is the one that's responsible for it. So when you're in a dangerous situation, you have this momentary point at which your system needs to decide what it's going to do. So that almost immediate response is coming here. So it could be that your brain, by the time the accident almost happened, I don't think that I was consciously aware of what was happening. I realized after the fact. So the brainstem, where the information first arrived, and the lower systems are the ones that needed to decide, this is what we're going to do. So if I stepped on the brake, it was that kind of reaction before the logic has set in and has decided that this is a dangerous situation. This vehicle, the blue Mazda, I don't know why a Mazda has come to mind. The blue Mazda is about to hit us at an angle of 45 degrees. If we swerve in this direction, no, it doesn't have enough time for us to go through all that kind of thought process. And so because of that, so this is an adaptation from our caveman days. We needed to, if we were faced with danger in the wild, if there was some wild animal that's about to attack us, all that reasoning doesn't help. You need to be able to, within a split, decide, are we, the body is rushed with the adrenaline or not, depending on what it is that your reaction is going to be. And that is what then determines what you do. I'm wondering if I'm giving free advertising to these people. I've put my paint inside a yogurt container. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So the fight-flight response is just that. We've touched on it. If there's something happening in your surroundings, you need to decide. Your system decides almost immediately, depending on what it is that's going on, whether this is you can take it. If it's a fight, if it's a situation where you'd be able to have some level of success if you are fighting it, or if it's a kind of situation that you need to run away from. The point in all of this is to save your skin, to save yourself. So your body is doing these quick calculations to understand which of those stands does it have to take. The freeze is the one where you've realized that nothing can happen. So it's like your body is waiting, is ready to be attacked. When you see these, I've heard it called the fawn. Was that what I heard it called somewhere? Either way, when you see these deers which are about to be attacked by a lion, they kind of give up. They fall over. I think it's not. I think that's the one they call fawn. So it's not just the freeze to see what is going to happen. It's this one that you're about to be attacked. Your body gives up. All the pain responses and everything else is gone because you expect to just be about to die. So now I want to tie this back to trauma. If you experience some trauma in your past, your system was unsafe. So there was this stress response. You probably needed to go through one of these modes. You needed to, depending on your age, your choices might have been very limited. So this your body reacted in one of these ways, and this information, how your brain learns, is that it categorizes. I have a friend who watches me, and sometimes she tells me that there are things I keep saying over and over again. I think this is one of them. How your brain categorizes the incidents that you've been through. So, an example actually given by Dr. Perry is the sense of smell. Sorry. Oh. It's this cough that's not a cough, the flu that's not a flu, just something that's there in the middle that I'm waiting to pass off. So he gives the example of a boy who lived through some traumatic events with his own father. And it turns out that the father used to wear a certain cologne, Old Spice. And when this boy went to school, he adapted well. He was in some foster family or adopted or something like that. Or the mother left the father. I can't remember exactly what the circumstances of that particular boy was. But he adapted well and everything was going okay until he got one particular teacher. And with that teacher, things would not go well. He would throw tantrums. And the boy was young. I think he was under 7. He would throw tantrums and, everyone was at a loss. Like, why? Why is this what's happening in this particular situation? So to cut a long story short, it turns out that the teacher was also wearing the same kind of scent, the Old Spice. And the system of the boy associated that scent with the danger that his father posed, because his father had been very, very, very violent. So this, because the senses, now that's what we were talking about. The senses have, the sense of smell has come in. It is then being relayed up to the brain, and the point at which it first interacts with the brain is the lower brain, the brain stem. And that part of the body has already categorized this scent with danger, because whenever he smelled that, then he was around his father, and that was a dangerous situation to be in. So whenever he smelled that in his classroom, he didn't know it. The cortex, the clever brain, the one in front, was never involved in this conversation. Remember, so he himself was not aware of what was going on. He was as surprised as everyone else. So it was just that his reaction to that teacher was that particular way. And when he was asked, he said that the teacher didn't like him. So there is no reasoning. The teacher didn't understand either. The teacher thought that this is just a problem child. But then when this is tied together, because it had been categorized, the scent had been categorized in a particular... When I do this, I mean a filing cabinet. The old school. You used to have this filing cabinet that you pull out, and then there are folders inside. So you're doing this as you look through the folders, trying to find the one that you want. Lost in our 40s. I'm in my 40s. There was a time before files were in the cloud or online. So, because the category that is pulled out for Old Spice is danger, and it caused the boy to feel dysregulated, so to fall out of balance. Things are not right, things are not okay, and this then makes him feel off, makes him feel unsafe. Yeah. And that is then what would make him react. So in class he would always be reacting, he'd be shouting, he'd have tantrums, he'd do what not, and yet this is his system trying to keep him safe. So that is the message around trauma, that sometimes there are things called emotional flashbacks. Now I'm taking you to Pete Walker and the complex PTSD. In that book, I came across the concept of emotional flashbacks, and this is when exactly the situation that has happened with this boy, that he has, without knowing it, because there are no images in when talking about trauma, something that is probably well known, when you talk about the areas that trauma were probably first studied was the area of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. This I got from the book Your Body Keeps the Score. I forget the author, but I'll put his name in the notes. So in that book, they mentioned that it's mentioned that the author was a psychologist, Bessel, Kolk, I think. The author was a psychologist who had been involved in this time in trying to have trauma as a whole be one of the things that is incorporated into the DSM. DSM is this book that in the US, the one that, well, I don't know if it's only in the US actually, the one that has all mental disorders categorized in. So trying to tie trauma, especially the kind of trauma that happens to young children, tied into that, with the notion being that a lot of the problems that are noted with people who have gone through trauma, yes, you can give it a name, you can give it a title, but you need to understand the source, the stem. And that's in fact the point of the book, What Happened to You. It's not just that you are reacting like that boy. It's not just that you are acting out and something is that you know, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? They say that that is the wrong question, because you need to look at what happened to you, and from that be able to understand that this is the reaction that you have. So I was mentioning PTSD, post-traumatic, with the war veterans is where it came out. The people who had gone to war and were fighting, and every once in a while something would happen and they would feel drawn back to the situation of war. I mean, loud sounds or just something discomforting. So they'd have these situations that would make them feel completely taken back. And that's the thing with the flashback. It's not just that you remember, is that you feel like your system has been transported back to that place. And with the war veterans, what they noticed is that they could see the images of exactly what happened. But with the notion, and that's the flashback. So they, wherever your war was, you feel that you have been transported back there, and you're in the trenches with your friends who maybe died in that war attempt, and you feel the position at which you were at the point of death yourself, something like that. So it was that traumatic event that has never left you, and that your whole system keeps revisiting, because your whole system is triggered to feel like you've gone back there. So with the concept of emotional flashbacks, there are no images. So that is what then this boy has gone through. Because of that scent, the Old Spice scent, his body has been retransported back to the point when he was facing his father with all the violence, but he doesn't see the images. So emotionally, he is back there, and that is why he starts acting out. That is why he cannot take it, because his system has gone back, but his mind is not aware. His clever brain is not aware. And this can happen based on triggers that we are not aware of. And that for me was the point that was just so astounding, because I experienced it myself. So there's something about information, it just creates even words for things. So I have gone through emotional flashbacks without recognizing them, because I didn't realize that there was such a thing, because I'd never heard of such a concept. So sometimes for me it was just a feeling like you've been overcome, like this boy probably felt. So not really knowing why he's reacting to the teacher, just feeling that class, there's something wrong with that class, there's something wrong. He just doesn't feel like he wants to be there. He doesn't know why. And that was it. And to give my example, it had to do with food. That's why you'll notice a lot of the things I talk about have a lot to do with food. So it had to do with food, and what I noticed one day is that well, I have I'm the kind of people who are called hangry, Hangry, meaning that when we are hungry we are angry. Yeah, so there's that kind of reaction. And in one particular situation, when I was going through that, I do realize, I have noted it with myself, that yes, when I am hungry, I need to eat. I need to eat, or things won't go well, not for me, or not for those people around me. So I think in this situation, what happened? Can I remember what happened? I felt not myself. I felt a sense of panic, and I hadn't put a name to it. It's a feeling I've had before, but without really digging down into it and trying to understand what it was. So the panic was around the idea that there might not be any food. And then when I noticed it, I was very surprised. There was one point when I felt I was sweating. It was a real thing. I started sweating. It was a real fear. And then I realized, and I told myself, wow, this is an emotional flashback. And there have been others, but this is, in my book, Date Like Cleopatra, I do mention a situation in my life where there was a nanny who did not avail food, who did not feed me. And this is a traumatic event that happened in my past that then has come back, even today, it comes back to visit me without my being consciously aware of it. So without reading these books and getting this information, I feel terrible. I feel terribly unsafe without realizing that this is what is going on. So for me, that was such an eye-opener. And there have been other traumatic events in my life, but this is just to give the example of there are things that happen without our knowing it. And if it's happening to us, it happens also to people around us. And the point is that the people don't know. And it's not their fault, because again, it happened, the categorizing and the sorting happened at the back of the brain, in the brainstem, before the information could reach the clever brain. And the other side of this is that, well, not so much another side, but another element of this is that when something happens, a situation happens, it's again going the route, the highway to the brain is through the brainstem. So if something has happened to dysregulate a person, so as we said again with this child, to dysregulate something, there's something that has been triggered, then that's again the good word, triggered. Something has been triggered from whatever point in your life. It doesn't have to have been in your childhood. It can be something, whatever it is that happened. If you get that dysregulated because in the brainstem it has been categorized in a particular kind of way, then that colors the information that is coming into your more clever brain, into your more clever brain, if I call it that, into your newer brain. such that, again, in the case of that boy, it was that this man doesn't like me, the teacher. Yeah, it could be an argument at work. We spend so much time at work. I think it's a good example that we can draw from. You might have an argument at work, and the stem of that argument, or rather the actual argument, might not have anything to do with what actually happened. It might have everything to do with the perceptions of the people who are there. So if it was whatever, the printer wasn't working. The printer wasn't working. And you go to the IT department to tell them they have to fix it. They have to fix it. Why does nothing ever work? This is so terrible. Why do we have an IT department if the printers don't work? Something as silly as that. And it could be that you are actually reacting to a situation that happened at home. Maybe when the TV was not working, your parent was in a bad mood and took it out on you and blamed you for having spoiled it. So then you have this trigger to things going wrong from a technical perspective, and you feel it needs to be fixed. So your heightened sensitivity to such a situation is something that your IT people are looking at blankly and wondering what the hell. And you in your coming to blame them for it, maybe the person you're talking to has a situation in their background where they have been blamed for things which were not their fault. So whenever anyone comes out at them, they feel like they really, really, really need to stand up for themselves. And so the argument that you're having is not about whatever it is that's going on. And this is because the sequence with which the sensory input or other input that has come into your brain is reaching the more clever part of your brain is through the brainstem, which in certain situation has already done the categorizing. When I started, really, the cough, I don't know, it's like the air is dry. Yeah, we're getting into winter, so the air is dry. I think that's just making it a little worse. So the other thing I want to just mention in tying this all together is I want to mention the inner critic. So the inner critic is the voice in your head that is tied. Let's take that is tied to certain feedback that you used to get and has stayed within your brain. So it's often your parents, your caregivers, it could be your teacher, it could be someone who was well critical of you. So if we go back to the example of this person who is annoyed that the printer isn't working because their parent was on their case when the TV was not working, that the what's the word? What's the word? I wanted to say the energy with which they pour themselves into the IT people, tearing them down and saying how terrible they are and why are they even there. That ferociousness, that's what I was looking for. And even the words that they use might be exactly the words that their parents used to use. So the other thing that I learned is that your inner critic might also criticize the outside world. So inner critic is yourself, a voice that tells you you're not good enough. Who told you that? Who says things like that? Not, you're telling yourself, like, why did I say that? Or why didn't I say anything? Well, that's your inner critic. So the thing I learned that I thought was particularly interesting was that we use that voice to others. And the reason I'm bringing it up today to tie up our show is that I used it today, but then I noticed it. So I was in a bus. I was in a bus sitting somewhere towards the back, minding my own business, as I always am. And I noticed a car. The bus was on the bus lane, and there was a car that stepped that went into the bus lane in front of the car, and then only to thereafter try to just find its way back into the lane that it was meant to be in. And the bus that I was in, the driver flashed his lights at him. And yeah, so I had this whole commentary in my head running. I was like, who does that? Who told you to come into this lane? Like, you're not meant to be here. Why do we have to suffer you? Daddy, 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 a whole tirade. And that's when I stopped myself and I said, Chick, you're not driving. You're not driving. You have absolutely nothing to do with what's going on the road. It's part of the blissfulness of not being a driver that you don't need to engage yourself with any form of road rage whatsoever, because you're well removed from what is going on. And that's when I realized, I tied it all together and I realized that, first of all, the ferociousness of my attack had to do with this critic who is now criticizing the outside people. And then I was asking myself, where did I hear that? Where in my life was it that I used to hear other people being criticized so ferociously? And then I also tied it back to the point that I was hungry. So all of these things just tying together to show that, and in a normal day, in a normal interaction, this is information coming here and not coming out to the front, such that my composure is being, of course I had this conversation inside my head, but that it is like a reaction, like an automatic thing that is happening without my willing it, really, because it's something that just came out, is what made me realize that yes, I need to be front and center with what's going on. I can't just I need to do exactly what I did there. I need to catch myself in these moments to be able to see the critic, because the critic is hard to see, because the critic sounds like yourself. So you think that this is something that you're saying, but no, you think it's you, but it's not you, because it's all these things that are happening within your system that perhaps haven't been processed from before. So all of this to paint a picture and maybe call for some compassion with other people, because if all of this is happening with all of us, and as I've mentioned it in passing, it doesn't have to be trauma even. It can be just some experience that has been catalogued in your mind in a particular way. So trauma, of course, was my main emphasis, but because of how information is going through our brains, there is that. So to understand that you yourself at times may not have the full view of a particular situation as it happens, which is why sometimes if you find yourself getting towards the realm of an argument, step aside, take some time to calm down. The calming down could be breathing exercises. That is regulating yourself, getting in touch with your body, moving it around. That is getting back within the rhythm of your own system, and that helps you recategorize the information that has come in. You might be able to see it in a new light. Now I could see that yes, this vehicle had come into the lane, into the bus lane, and that no, I don't need to spend my energy engaging with that, because my energy is precious. My energy could be used in many other ways. Yeah, and if I am hungry, eat. it was dinner time, so it was a little late. So, but if I am hungry, eat, and then to notice, in my case, to notice that kind of correlation. So there are probably a lot of small correlations that happen in many other areas of my life, in the areas of your life, and as humanity, there's correlations happening with everyone everywhere. So a call to have this in mind when dealing with people who we find difficult, because these could be the situations that they are going through. These are situations that we all go through, this lack of full sight, and yeah, we might be kinder to each other as humanity if we see that we are all humans We are all humans and we all go through, I wanted to say struggling in different ways, but that's not how I want to phrase it. We are all going through human processes, and sometimes we have blinders, things that we don't see that might make us react in a certain way. So if I have that kind of self-awareness and consciousness, and I'm able to give space and grace to other people, then maybe they can also give grace and space to me when I am the one who's overreacting. But yeah. Thank you for joining me. I always, always, always appreciate having you here with me. And I shall see you next time. Bye bye, gorgeous.